Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome everyone to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am excited to have with me Marcus Higgs. And let me tell you about Marcus. He works with Certain Future to support parents of preteens, ages 10 to 14, so they can show up and maintain a meaningful relationship with their child during these identity-breaking years. They work with parents who want to be present with their son or daughter before it's too late to bridge the gap. Using the Show Up framework, parents benefit when working with Marcus because they're confident in their communications when their tweens start having big emotions. They know how to be present when preteens start to withdraw, so their child continues to trust them and naturally opens up in difficult conversations. And they know how to support their child in ways to develop self-belief and resilience. So today we're going to talk about the topic, navigating parent-child bonds across the generations. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Marcus Higgs. Marcus, it's so good to have you with us today. And those in the audience know that developing confidence in our youth is a big passion of mine. I teach public speaking and leadership to the youth, and always am looking for platforms for folks that can help parents in this difficult time. And it's so important because oftentimes we talk about generations, and it's true, a lot of what our parents and their parents did impact how we deal with our kids. And my goal is to stop the bad things that have happened over the years and repeating those bad ways and maybe start a new way to do things. So I love to have people just like you, Marcus.
It's wonderful to be here, Vicki. Thank you for the introduction. I'm looking forward to this conversation because confidence is a big part of what I do. And if you can instill that at a younger age, a younger age, those seeds will grow if we learn how to nurture them.
Yeah.
And I hear you say we stop the bad things. It's a nuanced conversation because what are the bad things, right? And everything that eventually grows must first break.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I always start with an easy question. Tell everybody,
Sure.
where do you live? Where do you call home?
Hey. The reason I think that is because there's this unit we teach in grade 12, home away from home, and they say, what are some adjectives? I know you asked me a question, but what are some adjectives you would describe as home? Some adjectives that come
For
to
me,
mind. Yeah.
home is actually just where my family is. So I call Pittsburgh home because that's where I grew up. That's where my family is. I call Atlanta home. That's where I am. And if I'm with,
Roswell,
anywhere with family, it's like home because it's where the heart is.
It's where the heart is. We say it's a place where we feel familiar, feels warm, feels accepting, we feel secure. And then we say, is home in a person? Is it a state of mind?
Sure.
Is it a place? Yeah. Right now, I am in the Bahamas. I grew up in the Bahamas. For the past 15 years, I've lived abroad. I'm here with my aging parents now. I was born in California, and I grew up some time there and in Alabama, and then now I'm here. Home is home for me is a state of mind. It
Hmm.
is, people are oftentimes seeking safe spaces. Like opposite of Breaking Bad, I am the safe space. So home
Yeah.
is right here, right? Home is the Bahamas, and then home is with family.
Yeah,
So
for
that's home.
sure. Awesome. So I'd love for you to share your journey. I think it's always great to reveal that the past that took you, and so the audience knows that you didn't wake up yet years and years ago and say, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. But oftentimes that there are a lot of twists and turns in our journey. So please share what your journey has been that has brought you where you are today.
Um, Thank you for that. My journey is one of communication, one of globalism, one of human development. So I'm a third culture kid.
Hmm.
For those who are not familiar, it means your passport country isn't, well, there are many different definitions for it, but oftentimes where you grew up is not the same culture as what your parents grew up in.
Hmm.
So my mother's from the Philippines, my father's from the Bahamas, and they divorced when I was 12 after being born in California, and I grew up in
Hmm.
Huntsville. And I've been to Roswell, beautiful
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to
Uh,
Huntsville.
there
Where
you
in
go. Yeah.
California too did you grow up?
Riverside, SoCal.
Oh, I know Riverside too. Awesome.
There you go. Um, let's see. When I was 12, I moved to the Bahamas with my father, and I grew up here.
Hmm.
Um, it was a beautiful community. Studied communications, journalism in Huntsville, Alabama, and straightway went to be a missionary
Oh, wow.
in South Korea.
Oh,
I say my my worldview expanded. This is what I say. And
yeah.
while I don't, and the reason I say it like that is because I stopped being a missionary, and no animosity towards a church or anything, but I loved teaching and I continued on with that. Still had a sincere relationship with the divine and so on, because that's a large part of the work that I do. And we
Hmm.
can get into that when we get to that. But then I went to Saudi Arabia, spent 2.5 years there teaching, learning about Islam as a world religion, and then spent some time in Thailand, back to Spain, and then back to Thailand where I was for 7 years,
Mm,
and then now back to the
the
Bahamas.
Bahamas.
And just to talk about the work that I do, this is a goodbye book for my fifth graders when I was leaving, and it's filled with little
Oh,
stick men with afros.
oh, so cute. Oh,
The idea is I'm gonna stay in the game long enough that when they become parents of preteens, they can use the same principles because these are everlasting generational
yeah,
principles of human development. Yeah.
so true. So true. So, uh, and again, my background is that for the last, since 2011, I've been working with the youth in addition to working for corporate and all this. And my goal is always to make the world a better place. And the way you do that, I believe, is how you influence and allow children to develop into the great characters that they can be. And so having people like you to influence the parents and the children, I think is important. I can't just, oftentimes I pour into the kids and then the next week I have to start all over because of what their parents did or said to them to take away from that. And so, how can parents maintain open communications with their kids during the phase when they tend to pull back and desire more independence? With, the parents have been up to a certain age telling them how to do things, teaching them how to do things. And now all of a sudden, at 7 or 8, they're saying, oh no, I'm going to do this. So, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. Yeah. Um, I taught English language arts, so I love words, and plus I'm a writer, poet, and so on. This is my book, Words
Hmm.
of
Yeah,
Well-being.
I see that.
Yeah. Um, and the word educate and the word parent comes from the etymology or the root to bring forth. And that's what develop is. It means the uncovering.
Yeah.
In my work, there's the principle that there's beauty in there too, and it's emergent. It's going to come out. And our role as an educator or as a parent is to create the context by which learning can happen naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, in human development, there's the baby that's born. Even before we get there, when I said everything that eventually grows must first break, when we think about an egg,
Yeah.
if it breaks from the outside, there's death. But if it breaks from the inside, life emerges. And the idea is, again, creating the environment for what's in there to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Gabor Mate wrote the book, Hold On to Your Child, understandable, where they're born, you nurture them, you keep them close, you protect them in as much as you can, right?
Right.
But it's not because they're dependent, but it's natural. It's a natural thing for them to turn away and seek
Mm-hmm.
independence
Yeah.
because this is just the natural progression of life.
Yeah.
And that's not the final form. We have to understand that. The final form is interdependence. That means I promise to take care of me to be in service to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you promise to take care of you to be in service to me. All right.
Right.
But it's in that breaking away phase that one definition of conflict in narrative writing is um, having differing wants. And what the wants are there is the parent wants to hold on and the child wants to break away. Or sometimes actually the child wants to hold on, but there has to be that parental energy. I call it paternal energy because oftentimes it's fathers who do this, who
Mm-hmm.
push away. And now check this out. Mothers are saying, you're safe, you're secure, you're nurtured, you're here. I got you. Fathers, or let me not say fathers, paternal energy pushes away to say, you're safe and secure. You've got this. I'm here to support you. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a home, there's a safe space to come to, but I need you to do this on your own. Um, I help them in the communication of that exiting because there will always be conflict. There will
Mm-hmm.
always be crucial conversations. Life is about those crucial conversations. It's how do we manage a conflict that
Yeah.
makes a difference.
So true. So, how do you foster that resilience and self-esteem that
Mm,
preteens will need as they navigate through the challenges of growing up and self-discovery? And there are, a lot more challenges, there different challenges. I probably not a lot more, but there are different challenges than I had 65 years ago. So,
mhm.
it's
Oh,
the internet adds challenges, the fast pace of this world adds challenges. So talk about that a little bit.
um, so I have the startup framework, right? And we can talk about that a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
But the S start with a strong identity
Mm.
because that's why you call it the identity breaking years. Um, as a person who has wisdom on her side, it's always in those transformative years, those
Yeah.
moments where like it starts. The first one is during the preteen years. The next one is at young adults, so at early 20s. And the other one is when you become a parent yourself. The next one
Mm-hmm.
is when the hormones start setting in and they start shifting. All those are breaking. And each time life is asking you, who are you?
Yeah.
To which you answer, I am. So the first time kids are answering, I'm not like my parents because I'm not like this tribe. Yeah, they're right. But then they attach to a peer group. But then while they're with their peers, and you know this in your 20s, 30s, or so on, eventually you say, I'm not like these people. Again, life is asking you, who are you? So the answer
Mm-hmm.
is, I am. I am. The way we foster resilience or create that inside the child is by speaking to that at an early age, starting with a strong identity. How do we do that? Collective identity is called culture. People like us do
Mm-hmm.
things like this. That's what Seth Godin says. The first culture you have is your family culture.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things, I'm sorry, your last name is Nothing?
Nettling.
Nutling. Okay.
Yeah, the O
Okay.
is silent.
Okay. Nutling.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an identity that you have in your own family, and you say people like us do things like this, while also offering the space ideally your parents would offer you, and you would do you have children or no?
I have two adult children, two grandchildren, and I have both my parents still.
Okay, yes, yes, there we go. So each time it is, we do these things, but we also respect you're going to be an individual. So first of all is establishing a family culture, a family identity.
Mhm.
Second thing is establishing an individual identity, and that comes through your virtues and values. A lot of my work is, so my name is Marcus Aurelius.
Mhm.
Um, this is meditations. I did grow up with this, and as I told you, I grew up sincerely Christian. It was never a burden on me, never a burden on me. Um, establishing uh, an self-identity here. And when I speak of virtues and values, I can speak of this in the scientific way of, have you ever heard of virtues in action from positive
Mhm.
psychology,
Mhm.
VIA?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are with all families, not families, these are all with all individuals,
Right.
all cultures, all walks of faith. If you're human, you have these virtues. And really what a virtue is so it's things like creativity, leadership, what else? Perseverance. These are characteristic traits that lead to your individual well-being or to the well-being of another person. That's all a virtue really is,
Mhm.
right? And there are five that are expressed most in every individual. So you uniquely have five, I uniquely have five.
Mm.
But we have all the virtues.
Mhm.
Ideally, you have a teacher, you have a trusted adult, or you have a parent who is virtue spotting. Because where your attention goes, your energy flows. And as you start to see that, you start to think, oh, a person outside of me is noticing this in me. I start to notice this in me. And we start to find evidence and examples of that identity. That's how it takes hold.
Mm.
That's the virtue part. The values part is values simply are what's important to you.
Right.
For me, everybody has different values. You have different
Mhm.
values from your
Mhm.
partner, you have different values from your son, you have different values from your mother. It's respecting the kid's virtues and respecting the kid's values and then helping them make sense of putting it all together. That's how you start with a strong identity. That's where the seedlings of all this come from.
Mhm.
And then we continue on. So we're
Oh, awesome. So, as parents, what strategies should we use with our preteens to really help them understand how to be authentic, how to be, as you say, self or I am, when they often reserve all this for their friends. I mean, I just see that they're always trying to see and test, well, maybe I'll be this today, or maybe I'll be that tomorrow, as they look at their different friends. When my youngest daughter was in high school, she always said she wanted, the way she dressed and everything was, she wanted to be herself. She wanted to be an individual. But when you looked, it's like, but you're dressing like all these other
just like everyone
kids.
else.
I know. So where's the individuality of it? So anyways, so how do we develop, or what kind of strategies should we use as parents?
Sure. I think at the beginning of all of this, we have to understand they're throwing spaghetti at the wall,
True. It's
right?
so
They're
true.
trying to figure out what's stick. So it's for us to be gracious to say, okay, I'm going to come to a quick study out of a wonderful book. If you're a parent of a preteen, I would highly recommend this book called The Breakthrough Years. It just came out by Ellen Galansky. And the reason is because the book acts as an advocate for teenagers
Mm.
of what they would like to tell parents.
Oh.
And whenever starting communication, of course, the first thing is understand your audience.
Mhm.
So the reason I bring up this book is because one way in which adults in their lives describe kids, more than 50% of them said they're immature.
Mm.
Now, I want you to think about this. Do we call a baby an immature toddler? Do we call a toddler an immature child? No. we have to understand they're at this developmental stage where it is awkward, where they are going to bump and bruise and crash and everything. Your daughter is
Hmm.
going to say one thing while doing another. And and the thing is, you think adults are one way. So you think they're perfect, and that's why they're trying to live into that. And then when they fault, that's why they're trying to hide it, creating those
Yeah,
shadow parts of themselves they don't want others to
true.
see.
Hmm.
So who do they confide in? They confide in their friends who are going
Hmm.
through the same awkward stage. Unfortunately, as you said, they're finding, and this is actually in the studies now. How are kids different from they were past in the past? They're forming their identities behind the screen, in the likes and those causes and everything. Now, I want you
Hmm.
to see this. If there's no internal locus of control or identity here, when the screen shuts off, the question is, who am I? And I
Yeah.
think that is contributing to a lot of the depression.
Yeah, I believe that. True. Hmm.
To your question of what can we do as parents, anybody in sales knows the conversion is made in the conversation. That's why
Hmm.
the quality of your life is directly related to the quality of your communication.
Yeah.
Let them enter into a non-judgmental space where you know you can walk with them through their thoughts. And when you're walking with them through their thoughts, you're not, you're making the connections of things that they're seeing while not dictating. And then you're trusting them to make the decision. And when you're trusting them, you've talked with them about healthy risk and not healthy risk.
Hmm.
Um, because in this age, at this age rather, it is characteristic of risk taking. But
Hmm.
how do you help them make positive risk, or sorry, healthy risk? And you can look at it like Jeff Bezos. He said there are one-way doors and then there are revolving doors. If you know it's a revolving door, go for it. Like try break things. But then if it's a one-way door, like sit down and find counsel. Um, there's a framework by which I say all of this because I know I'm saying a lot.
Mm.
But be gracious with them as they're throwing spaghetti against the wall. I'll put that in there. And then walk with them through conversation. And then having projects, this is from Angela Duckworth's work in Grit, long-term things that they find valuable, learning how to have grit, how to do difficult
Yeah.
things over
Right.
long periods of time. So
That's
I said a
I
lot.
always liked to have my kids do some of the volunteer work I did because I thought, it exposed them to a lot of things, but it people and activities, but it really did give them a better perspective and maybe a start to figure out who they are.
Yes. Um, we're also noticing that because of the lack of in-person communities, to take it back to Mr. Rogers, Mr. Rogers said, if you want to help the kids, help the parents. So that's
Yeah,
that work.
that's exactly
But
right.
the idea of communities, and this is the thing, and I said that my spiritual understanding influences my work. I've worked in Islamic communities, in Buddhist communities, in atheists, and agnostic. Like the difference between values and beliefs are what you think are true. Values are what you think are important.
Hmm.
And for me, well-being is important. So if you're aligned with that, let's go as hard as we can go. That's just how I go.
Hmm.
Now, I said all that to say communities of faith find children who are more well-adjusted. And I've been thinking about this, right? When I say more well-adjusted, growing up, I had to enter into spaces where I am a peculiar person, but I knew and understood my peculiarity is I'm bringing wholesomeness to this.
Yeah,
So there's nothing I should hide from this.
yeah.
Like it's just like lean into it. It's okay. It's okay if you know you're doing and and that's when you know you can navigate spaces knowing you're doing what is right. And that again, that comes to Marcus Aurelius. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do as you understand it. Because sometimes you
Hmm.
do the right thing thinking it's right, and it you have to ask yourself, was that the right thing? Is this the person
Hmm.
I want to be?
And that kind of goes back to the development of
Your identity.
your values too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One very there's a quick tip. If you have established family values and you trust your kid, just the simple phrase, is this the type of person you want to be?
Yeah.
And saying that in a non-demeaning way. It's like, I'm not speaking down to you, but
Mm.
is this the type of person you want to be? And the
It's
beautiful
just
thing
a
about a
question.
question is it sits with the person.
Yeah.
When they leave the conversation, the question is still with them. I'm sorry, Vicki,
Hmm.
I cut you.
No, no, no. That I said it is just a question. You know, oftentimes I like to present thought-provoking questions for them to just think about it, and to that's why I love that I teach communication for the kids, because I want them to be able to express their frustration, their disappointment, and know that I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to be sarcastic or angry or mean. I just want them to be able to express it. Sometimes it does shock me what they say, but it
Surprise, yeah.
is that they're okay, this is a safe space to be able to do that. And as a parent, oftentimes we're just always thinking, no, I have to correct them and make it be my way. But maybe my way is not the way that will help them develop and find their identity.
To tell you a story about that, um, I remember we're doing these quick writes in class.
Mm-hmm.
It was grade 12, and I presented one from Thich Nhat Hanh's work. And this was inside Thailand. And the kids that I'm working with, they speak English fluently. It was
Mm-hmm.
their first language. Um, and one of the girls said, "Oh, this is all BS," but she said the full thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then every head snapped, and half the heads were looking at me, and half of them were looking at her. And it was a moment in psychological safety. Psychological safety means, can I authentically be myself without fear of threat?
Yeah.
And I stood up and I approached the class because my desk was behind them. And I said, um, I curse outside the class. I said, I don't curse in the class because I'm teaching you how to be professional in things in context. And I said, so I don't expect you to curse in class. And I understand if this is bad stuff, I said to her. And I said, but that's not the problem here, really. And I said, there's no problem here. I said, it seems as though you're really angry at this. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. It's a beautiful thing. Because I acknowledge what she did. And I noticed, hey, this is not the problem. And then she went on to a rant. I gave her space to rant. And she was talking about how her parents sent her to a meditation camp, but they themselves were hypocrites.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see how angry and frustrated she was. And she's a bright kid, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of it, I told her, I said, look, how you feel is valid. And you gave me evidence and examples as to why you believe that.
Yeah.
I said, Thich Nhat Hanh has been doing this for 30 years, and he's made an impression on many people's lives as well as mine. And I don't feel offended by it, but I said, you're going to walk your path and you're going to remember this moment, maybe, when you come into an understanding of it. Um, and I said, because it brings me peace when I have a practice of meditation, and I'm not expecting you to meditate now.
Mm-hmm.
But also I have evidence and examples as to why I say, this stuff, it may work. It may or
Yeah.
may not work for you. I gave her space to be her and space to be me. And I just say all that to say, on your point of allowing them to crash,
Yeah.
and and they can have emotions. The emotions are valid.
Mm-hmm.
Check behaviors, yeah, set expectations for that. But
Right.
let them be themselves, and that built rapport. I've been talking for a while, Vicki. Thank you for being gracious.
No, but I think we could probably talk for hours and hours on this, because it is complicated. It is a topic that parents, there is no manual, that's been said over years and years, but there is no manual. And each individual kid, I had 7 kids in my family, and none of us were the same. All
Yeah,
7 kids were different and unique. And so for my parents to know how to do they basically tried to do the same thing that they did with every kid, but it didn't work for every one of us. So it isn't one of those things where I've got this, I know what I'm doing. You have to listen to your kids, and you have
yeah,
to let them fail. And that's the hardest thing as a parent. We always want to be that safety net. We always want to keep them from harm, and and not have bad things. But the best lessons I ever learned in all of my years are the lessons I learned from failing. And I remember when my grandfather passed, and I was very, very close to my mom's dad, and he died suddenly after falling downstairs. And
Right.
my parents wouldn't let me go to the funeral because they knew I was very close to him, and they thought that I couldn't handle it. And I ended
Mm,
up having to write a paper in 7th grade about my grandfather to get through the grief of
mm,
me losing
mm-hmm,
my grandfather.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And parents need to understand that sometimes um, you do have to let them fall out of the nest.
But Brene Brown said what gets mentioned gets managed. And when you can speak about that, as opposed to hiding it, it's actually how you process it. And you had to process it by
Absolutely.
yourself on the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well, this has been so wonderful. I have a couple questions. I know we're a little over, but as preteens become more influenced by their peers, how can parents encourage them to make wise choices and resist the negative peer pressure that we see?
in the work I do, it is about the parent being a trustworthy present parent. Um, it's not easy, but it's the fact of you being present to say, and you building that trust over a long period of time because you actually have a head start
Mm-hmm.
than the peers. They will seek their peers, don't get me wrong, but they need to know there's a space where I can come back to where there's wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you do that is by keeping your stuff together. One thing we didn't mention is
We
making
want to go
repairs and
through the
reconnection.
steps, please. That was my
Um,
second final thing.
we
The
can, and
framework.
I'll
Mm-hmm.
just touch.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this very briefly, but making repairs and reconnections.
Mm-hmm.
If there's anything I would leave with the parents, because then you're teaching the kid, hey, it's okay to make mistakes, and this is how you make repairs and reconnections. And that's admitting what you did wrong, saying this is not the person I want to be, restoring it, and then saying,
Your audio cut out. Oh, I don't know if it's yours or mine. Oh.
or it was we're talking about repair and
So we're
reconnection, but
talking, yeah, repair and connections.
and reconnections. When you do that, you're telling your child it's okay to fall on your face, and this is how you restore it. And again, reaffirm your identity going forward.
I
That builds confidence from the inside. Yes.
and I think too, you as a parent are always being watched. So how you react to those situations, how you demonstrate that is also a learning lesson.
Yes. Yes. And that's why I say I work with the parent. Really what I do is it is life coaching. I'm just using the context of your child and the conversation that's going to come there. In life
Mm.
coaching, we rub up against difficult things. And the one who knows our insecurities the most are first ourselves. And second is our kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, it's been so wonderful chatting with you. I do have to have you come back and we can talk a little bit more in depth in some of these subjects we covered today. But for those that are very intrigued and interested in learning more about what Marcus does and maybe how he might help you or somebody you know, I'm going to share his contact information. You know the drill that if you have been listening and don't have a paper and pencil, run quick and get it. I'll share the information, but it is all on my YouTube channel, the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast website as well. So YouTube is Vicki Noethling. Please subscribe, and the findyourleadershipconfidence.com. But if you are watching, go ahead, feel free to get a screenshot right now. It is, the website is marcushiggs.com, and LinkedIn is the same, Marcus Higgs. And I'll turn it over to Marcus to talk to you a little bit about what you'll find when you go to his website or that LinkedIn site that might help you get started in your journey.
Sure. If you come to my website, you will find a little brief overview of the show up framework. And first of all, the wall of ice, that's the challenge that we're breaking through, that Vicki and I spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a form that you can reach out to contact me. I'm putting together workshops that I will advertise on LinkedIn to get on a mailing list. And if you're interested in having these types of conversations, it's a fascinating time. I work with parents whose children are from 10 to 14.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you can lay the groundwork to mitigate a lot of the other headaches that would come. And it's working with yourself, because as a teacher, again, it's emergent, and I'm working with what's inside of you.
Awesome. Well, Marcus, it's just been great chatting with you today. You have a lot of wonderful things to share, and I do hope that people will reach out to you. As you said, parenting is not always easy, but it is better when you find others to be in your community to seek advice, guidance, shoulder to cry on, whatever it might be. So thanks so much for being a wonderful guest. And as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.